The most important thing about this subject is not what pilots saw. It is how many of them decided to say nothing at all. For decades, the professional advice was simple and unwritten. Keep it to yourself. Guess what the cost of speaking up was? Your judgment gets questioned quietly by the people who decide what you fly. Nobody had to threaten anyone. The incentive did the work on its own. And an organization that punishes reports does not stop the events, it stops the reports. This did not start as a conspiracy. It started as a reasonable decision that aged badly. In the 50s, the military looked into sightings and found almost all of them were ordinary. That was the correct finding, and the correct response would have been to keep looking. Guess what happened instead? The program was closed, the conclusion was announced, and the subject became a joke. Once it is a joke, the cost of mentioning it lands entirely on the person mentioning it. The finding was right. The signal it sent was catastrophic, and it lasted 50 years. Step back from the strangeness for a moment and look at it as an operational problem. Military aircraft share crowded airspace, and near misses are a genuine safety matter. If a crew sees something they cannot identify, that is a hazard report, whatever it was. Guess what a culture of silence does to that? It removes the hazard from the record without removing it from the sky. There were documented near misses that went unfiled for exactly this reason. That is not a philosophical problem. That is a safety system with a hole in it. The most consequential thing that happened recently in this subject was not a video, it was a form, a standard reporting process with a named office at the end of it. That sounds trivial. It changed the numbers immediately. Guess what happened to the count of reports once filing became routine? It went up sharply, and nobody thinks the sky suddenly got busier. What changed was the cost of telling somebody. Every number in this subject is a measurement of willingness to report, not of what is out there. One distinction there is worth stopping on, because it is not about aircraft at all. Any count of incidents is really a count of incidents somebody chose to write down. Safety records, bug reports, complaints, near misses of every kind. Guess what a falling number usually means in an organization under pressure? Often not fewer events, fewer people who think reporting is worth it. Which is why a sudden improvement in a safety record deserves suspicion, not celebration. The most dangerous chart in any company is the one that quietly got better. Only two ways exist to get honest reports out of people, and one of them does not work. The first is to demand them, with rules and audits and mandatory forms. The second is to make reporting cost the person nothing.
Guess which one aviation eventually settled on for its ordinary safety system? The second, and it took a series of accidents to get there. Anonymous, protected, and explicitly not usable for discipline. It is the reason commercial aviation gets safer nearly every decade. The whole system rests on the promise that telling the truth will not be used against you. With the cost lowered, what came in was less dramatic than the internet expects. Most reports are short, uncertain, and end with the crew saying they could not tell. That hedging is what an honest report looks like from a trained observer. Guess which reports are the least trustworthy? The confident ones. Certainty is the first thing that goes when you look carefully. The good reports read as boring, and boring is exactly what you want. A witness who tells you what they cannot rule out is worth 10 who tell you what it was. One thing from those years cannot be recovered, and it is worth naming plainly. For half a century, whatever was happening without records, no forms, no follow-up, no data to compare across decades. Guess what that means for anybody trying to study it now? The baseline is missing. You cannot tell whether anything has changed. Every trend line in this subject starts around the point the stigma was lifted.
Not because the event started then, because that is when writing them down became safe. 50 years of possible evidence was not destroyed, it was simply never created.
The lesson from all of this has nothing to do with what is in the sky. Every organization has something people have learned not to mention. It is rarely forbidden, it is just expensive in small social ways to bring up. Guess how you find out what that thing is where you work. You cannot ask directly because the same cost applies to answering. You look for the topic that only gets discussed after people leave the room. Then you make it free to say out loud and wait, because it takes a while. What comes back will be unflattering, and that is the entire point. The Air Force spent 50 years proving that silence is not the absence of a problem. It is the absence of information about a problem, which is much worse. Guess which of those two most organizations are actually measuring? The wrong one, and they usually find out from an accident report.